Well, it's time again.
Welcome to the Unlock Your Mind podcast, where traditional beliefs are challenged, fears are confronted, and dreams are brought back to life. I'm your host, Derek J. Love.
Unlock Your Mind podcast. Welcome.
Well, hello, family. Welcome to another episode of the Unlock Your Mind podcast. I'm so glad you tuned back in. I really think you're going to enjoy this one on today. Today, I'll be talking about going from poverty to properties. From poverty to properties. So many of you may or may not know me, but I was raised in a small farm town in Louisiana, Lake Providence to be specific. It's a very small town, very poor. It's still very agricultural. And so the predominant industry there is farming. And so we did not have a lot of money. I mean, that's putting it mildly. So growing up, I wasn't exposed to a lot of things when it comes to wealth or how to generate wealth, how to take advantage of things like real estate to build wealth. I just wasn't exposed to it. We rented all of my childhood. And if I'm not mistaken, I know this to be a fact. I am the first person in my family, on my mom's side at least, to purchase a home. The first of my siblings. And I'm pretty sure I'm the first of all, with the exception of my grandmother who owned a property. But anyway, growing up, I was never exposed to owning property. That just never wasn't even a concept. It was make enough money to pay the rent and keep the utilities on. That's what I knew. So growing up, that's what I was accustomed to. I left Louisiana, came out to Houston, Texas, finished up school, joined the military, got out of the military, and I had a mindset to build wealth. I didn't exactly know how to do it. So I thought about getting into real estate. So, because I was getting out of the military, didn't quite have a job lined up. And so I knew I wanted to move to Houston. And so what I did was I was stationed in Dallas. So when I was getting ready to move to Houston, I said, well, let me take advantage of my benefits and my employment right now. So I purchased a property in Houston before I got out of the military. It was an investment property. It was a multifamily property, a fourplex, which means it had 4 units. And the reason I did that was because I wanted to be able to live in one of the units and rent the other 3 out, create passive income. The other 3 units far exceeded the mortgage payment. So I basically was living for free. It gave me time to get set up and positioned while I got into Houston to try to find employment or start a business or whatever I was going to do. I wasn't quite sure exactly how that was going to work, but I just knew I needed to be in Houston and I needed to own some property. So I found me a fourplex. I bought it. I can't remember, $150,000, $140,000, somewhere in there back in the day. And I lived in one of the units, rented the other 3 out. Why did I do that? Well, because I didn't have any money. But I knew that real estate was the way to go to build wealth. So the most I could buy with no money and good credit was a fourplex. You can buy up to 4 units as your primary residence. Make a note of that. For all you who have not bought a home yet, you can buy up to 4 units, and it will be considered a primary residence, even if you're a veteran. So if you haven't bought a home, that may be a smart move. That's what I did. So I bought that property. I lived in it for a few years, rent free. I was stupid with money. I didn't know any better. And if you read my book, you kind of know how stupid I was. But anyway, I'm not going to go into that. If you want to get a copy of the book, that'll be great. It's Unlock Your Mind, Unlock Your Money. It's available on Amazon. Moving right along. After I bought that property, I got into, I met with some investors. And a lot of other owners from out of state bought properties in my complex where I was living. And I just got my real estate license. So I got into knowing and meeting other investors and lenders who knew the game, knew the industry, knew how to position me and how I could, start gradually building more wealth through real estate. So I did just that. I learned from them and I bought me a duplex. Again, didn't have a lot of money in terms of cash to put down on investment property, but I had good credit. I had a fourplex unit. So when I got ready to buy my duplex is just 2 units. It's 2 houses under one roof. So I bought that house, lived in it as my primary residence, which means I didn't put any money down. And it was just like I was buying a single family home. But now while I have this duplex, one of the other units, the other side of the building was already rented. So it was pretty much covering the mortgage. So now I had the fourplex and a duplex. So now I got basically 5 rental properties that I didn't pay any money for to purchase. You see what I'm saying? So I was strategic at a very young age. I bought my first property at 23 years old. And so I wanted to make sure that I put myself in position to build wealth. And again, I'm still a novice at this stuff at that time. So I didn't really know. I just knew this is how they do it. So this is what I'm going to do. I was dumb. Long and short, I lost that first property to foreclosure, not due to my own fault. It just, the whole community went bad, and the ship started sinking. I couldn't keep it afloat. I had to bail ship. So what? My world came to a screeching halt. Credit went in the trash. Oh my God, what am I going to do? Back to poverty again, because I still had a poverty mindset. All the money that I saved from not paying mortgage for those 4, 5, 6 years, I was going to say I tricked that off, but I can't say that. But I guess I just said it. So anyway, I blew that money. I couldn't tell you what happened to that money to save my life. I blew it. I did stupid stuff with the money. I did poverty stuff with the money. I spent it. I didn't reinvest it. I didn't save it. I spent it. And again, I talk about all these things in my book, but I'm trying to get you to see how I had to shift from a poverty mentality to accumulating properties. So I bought that property. I bought the duplex, and it took me 10 years before I bought my first primary residence home, single family home. My wife was, going crazy because all of her friends and her AKA sorors and college buddies was all buying big, pretty houses and nice subdivisions and looking all great and cool. And I got it going on. I got a BMW and I got my own house. Girl, I am doing it. That's fine. Like, if that's what you want, you go find you a man that'll give you that. I'm not that guy. I'm going to be strategic with how I spend my money and the kind of pressure that I'm going to put myself in and the kind of financial stress I'm willing to endure. I would rather buy a property that will pay me to own it than buy a property that I have to pay to own. Hear what I just said. I would rather buy a property that will pay me to own it than to buy a property that I have to pay to own. It's a big difference in buying a multifamily property or investment property versus buying a single family property to live in. I do both, but I started buying properties that would pay me to own it. That's how the wealthy think, okay? So I always want you to think about when you're investing, when you're spending money, does this that I'm ready to spend this money on, does it have the potential to pay me back? Does it have the potential to pay me to own it? Think about that when you're buying anything. Now obviously certain things that's not even relevant, but you get what I'm saying. And when it comes to big investments, does it have the potential to pay me to own it? If you buy a boat, can it pay you to own it? If you're going to use it to do tours and fishing charters. If you're just buying it for luxury, probably not, unless you're going to lease it out. Figure it out. I mean, I'm not against boats. If you want a boat, get you a boat, but just figure out how to make that thing pay you to own it. Again, it's a mindset shift. This is the Unlock Your Mind show, So why is that important? From poverty to properties. Well, one, owning property, owning real estate is the most stable way to build wealth, period. I don't care what anybody tells you. Your job is one, but your job should be a tool to acquire real estate that also can build your wealth. Long term, well beyond your working years, your real estate have been purchased and has been working for you since you've owned it. So one, you get passive income from owning rental properties, right? So say, for example, you buy your property. And let's just do easy math. You buy it for $100,000. You can rent that house for $1,400, $1,500, depending on your geography, of course. That may vary. But if you have $1,000 mortgage and you rent it for $1,500, you make $500 a month passive income. Now, I don't know about you, But I don't know a lot of places where you're going to make $500 a month passive income, which means it's mailbox money. It shows up every month, whether you work or not. I don't know a lot of places. The stocks, of course, there's some benefits there, but that's not going to be consistent. So owning real estate, one, you get monthly cash flow. Then you get annual cash flow. Again, you accumulate that over a year. How much money have you made? And then you get equity. Equity is this pretty term that wealthy people use when their value has increased more than what they owe on a piece of property. So again, you bought this house for $100,000 and it's in a good area, good schools, good neighborhood, developing area, stable area, no crime, low crime, blah, blah, blah. So this house, over time, that house that you bought for $100,000, it's been paying you $500 a month, and it's also going up in value. In Houston, the average rate of return is about 5% a year. So, again, so 1 year, that house is now worth $105,000. And so every year, if it increases on average about 5% a year, you do the math, 10 years down the road, 20 years down the road, how much equity do you have? That house could be worth $300,000-$400,000 in that time frame. So not only are you getting paid monthly, you have equity building up. So when you sell it or when you cash it out or do whatever you do with it, you have increased your net worth by several $1,000s over that time frame. That house has paid you to own it. You follow what I'm saying? All right. So number two, the other benefit is you get to build wealth. A home or rental property, you are acquiring assets. Yeah, things that increase in value over time. So you get to build wealth. You get to leave an inheritance. How do you leave an inheritance for your children's children? You can't leave them a car. They're not going to want to drive that car. I don't care how nice it is today. Your children's children are not going to want to drive that car. I don't care what brand it is. You can't leave them your clothing. Unfortunately, I don't care what suit you in right now or what dress you're wearing right now, your children's children are probably not going to want to wear that. So what kind of inheritance can you leave for your children's children? You can leave them some stocks and bonds. Sure. Those companies may or may not exist during that time frame or, at that point, 20, 30, 40 years from now. But you can leave them some property and it pretty much will stand. You can leave them some land and it'll be there. They'll have that equity. They'll have that piece of real estate and they can use that money to give them a head start in life so they don't have to start at the bottom like you did, like I did. So when we have things like that in place, the Bible tells us to leave an inheritance for your children's children. It says a wise man leaves an inheritance for his children's children. That's at least 2 generations. And you should be able to do that now. So how do you do that? By acquiring real estate, buying some property, buying some rent properties. I hate dealing with people. Well, okay, you deal with people on your job. You hate that too, but you still go to work. Well, so just all those little excuses, come on. If you're really trying to do this, get past that stuff. Hire somebody to deal with them. You don't have to deal with them. Hire a management company. There's tons of them. And last benefit, well, not last, this is just the last one I'm going to talk about here because I only have a short amount of time to keep your attention. The tax benefits, you get a lot of tax benefits when you own real estate. You get to write off all the expenses. You get to write off maintenance. You get depreciation. And so there's a ton of tax benefits for people who earn a high income and they don't own a business like doctors and lawyers and nurses and people like that who earn high incomes, but they don't have any write-offs, any business expenses to write off. They get taken advantage of, or they pay more in state and government taxes, income taxes, because they don't have any write-offs. Whereas, if you owned 3 or 4 rent properties and was a high income earner, you could keep your job, but you get to write off so many expenses that will shelter your earned income because you get to write off the expenses for your rent properties. I'm not a CPA, but I do know what I'm talking about. But you can check with your CPA to learn your state-specific guidelines for that. But I'm pretty sure that's across the board in the U.S. That's why the tax laws were written for businesses. If you notice, the tax benefits generally go towards business owners. Well, owning rental property, you're considered a small business owner. You get the same benefits of big business. You just don't make as much money. So there's tax benefit to that. So lastly, I want to give you some how-tos. So Derek, okay, I understand, you grew up poor and you've kind of accumulated some properties. How do I do that? I'm glad you asked. So first thing, if you do not currently own a home, I would highly suggest you consider buying a multifamily home first, or at least a smaller home, not something that, you're going to impress a lot of people with, but just get you something, get in the door. You don't have to marry the house. Just buy something that's small, that's in a good area, that's, low income. If it's a single family home, get you something that's, kind of on the lower end of a good neighborhood. So example, if the neighborhood homes on average sell for $250 or, $200,000, again, this is all depending on where you live, what part of the country you're in, try to find something on the low end in that neighborhood. And the reason I say that is because you always have room to go up if you buy low in a higher end neighborhood. If you buy at the top end of the neighborhood, if the average home over there sells for $250 and you buy one at $250 or $260, more than likely people that are looking to buy $250,000 and $260,000 homes, they're not coming to that neighborhood. They're going to go to another neighborhood. And so you're at the top of the food chain, which means you're more than likely going to have to sell your property at a loss. So I talk about all these things in my book. Again, Unlock Your Mind, Unlock Your Money. I give you the game on how to do this and how to win financially using real estate. And so you want to buy on the low end. That way you have room to go up in value. And if you get you one at 170 and the average is 250, you got about $80,000 spread to potentially increase the value of your property. Again, I can't go through all those pros and cons, but get a copy of the book. Again, it's on Amazon, Derek J. Love, and the book is Unlock Your Mind, Unlock Your Money. Stop admiring the wealthy and become one. So here's what you do. First, you have to set a goal. I have a goal of buying one property a year or one property every 2 years, just depending on how my finances flow. I just bought a property last year, a single family home. I got a good piece of equity in it. I won't give you that number, but I have a pretty decent piece of equity in that property, and I get paid. It pays me $800 a month to own it. Every now and then I might have to go deal with something, but hey, I'll take that. No big deal. So get in the door, buy your first property. You got to monitor your credit. So, there's so many TV shows out now and real estate seminars. It's just, you can buy and invest in real estate and do it wholesale, and you don't even have to have any money in the game and blah, blah, blah. Okay. That folks, don't fall for that stuff. They're selling you their products. Again, I'm a personal finance coach. I don't have nothing to hide from you. I'm going to shoot it to you straight. And, of course, there are some exceptions to every rule, but by and large, those things are generally just selling you their products. And so try to avoid those. Get you somebody, a realtor, who's going to educate you and give you the game. And they're not just looking for a commission, but get you somebody that's really going to kind of school you. If you're in the Houston area or even Texas for that matter, I would highly suggest you call me. Of course, I'm supposed to say that. You knew I was going to say that, right? Come on. Anyway, get in the door, folks. Get your credit right. You need to be shooting for the higher credit, as high of a credit score as you can get. And if you know me, you've been around, I'm not an advocate for a credit score, but for this purpose, you're going to need your credit score. So you want to try to minimize your debts, pay off all your debts if you can, free up some income. And then you want to make sure that you don't do anything crazy when you're trying to start the process for buying a house. By crazy, I mean go buy a new car, go buy new furniture, and go finance a whole bunch of stuff. You want to leave your money still, let your money sit for a couple months. Try to stack as much as you can in your bank account, because the lenders, they're gonna want to see your bank statements. So try to stack some money in your bank. If you're self-employed and you've always written off everything you possibly can, next time for next tax season, you may want to show that you made a profit, because when you're trying to buy real estate, they're going to want to see that you actually earn some money. So if you make $70,000 a year, $100,000 a year as a 1099 employee or a self-employed, you may want to show them that you made some money. So pay a few dollars in taxes if you're planning on using that income to buy real estate, which would be, again, a very smart thing to do. Start saving now. Set aside, $500 a month, $1,000 a month if you can. Sacrifice, do what you need to do, because you need to get your foot in the door, people. This is how you change your family tree. This is how you leave an inheritance. This is how you change your legacy. Owning property. The sooner you start, the better. Start saving. If you don't have to spend money on something, do not spend it. Save that money so that you can free up your time. That's the whole point of building wealth. From my perspective, the entire point of having money and building wealth is to free up your time so that you can do more with the people you love and the things that you love with your time. That's a limited resource. We can always get money. We can't get more time. We can't buy more time. I don't care how much money you have. When you're out of time, you're out of time. So while you can, sacrifice so that you can build wealth, so that later on in life, you can enjoy life. And if you want to travel, you want to vacation for 6 months out the year, so what? Do it. You have made the sacrifices early to be in that position. You have accumulated enough real estate and passive income and built enough wealth to where you don't even have to work anymore. You work because you want to work, not because you have to work. That's where I want to get you, okay? So if you're listening to me, anytime if I'm coaching, if I'm writing a book, if I'm doing whatever I'm doing, I'm always trying to push you in that direction to where ultimately you can free up your life to have time to do the things that are really important to you, and everything else will fall in place. So monitor your credit, start saving, consider buying a multifamily property first. If you're in the Houston area, there aren't a lot of them that are worth anything. And the ones that are out there, they're kind of crappy. But, there's some things I got working that, we may be able to work something out. But anyway, regardless of where you are, consider multifamily first before you buy a single family home. If you want to accumulate some rental properties and get that real estate game going. And you can do this while you're still working your full-time job. You don't have to quit and become a real estate mogul or attend real estate classes. You don't have to do any of that stuff. You can get this going while you're still working your day job. So here's how I did it. I bought one. I lived in it, moved out. I bought another one. Lived in it, moved out, and bought another one. And then after that, when I got to my primary house, I couldn't really use that model anymore because you already got a house. But so then I just had to start buying them with cash. And so that's kind of what I do. I put down the down payment or whatever I need to do to buy them. I bought a few just outright with cash, and others I put down a significant down payment just to acquire that equity in that house and collect that passive income. I'll put down $20,000 up front if I can make $3,000 a year or $5,000 a year, $6,000 a year in passive income, because I'm not going to make that with that money sitting in the bank. You know what I'm saying? The bank only giving me 0.1%, 0.2%. Now they've loaned my money out and they've made $50,000 off of my 20 in 6 months, but I ain't the bank, so I don't have that kind of leverage. So again, guys, from poverty to properties, I own 7 homes. I started with nothing. I started broke. I didn't have no rich uncle to give me no money. I sacrificed. I got in the game. I bumped my head. I lost a lot. And I kept going. Even when I lost that property to foreclosure, I had to rebound and come back, and I still bought property. So if you've lost property to foreclosure, something like that, it's not the end of the world, folks. We can fix this. We can get this thing right. Get in the game. Do not miss this opportunity to ride the real estate train. It is the safest train on the track. Okay? Don't buy a house to impress. Buy a house to invest. This has been the Unlock Your Mind podcast. See you next week.
Thank you guys for tuning in to another episode of the Unlock Your Mind podcast. I hope you found some value in listening today. I pray you would share this episode. Share the love. Become a part of the Unlock Your Mind family. We're all in this together, changing the way we think so that we can change our financial future. If this episode challenged you or inspired you or made you want to do something different, I want to hear about it. You can email me. It's Derrick@DerrickJLove.com. That's DERRICK @DerrickJLove.com. Or if you want to do something a little quicker, leave me a voicemail. You can reach me at 833-721-2251. And remember, if you can unlock your mind, you can unlock your money. So start now. Start living the life you love and loving the life you live. See you next week, guys.
Thank you for tuning in to the Unlock Your Mind podcast. Follow Derek J. Love on all social media platforms at Derek J. Love. Derek J. Love is a financial coach, a public speaker, author, and real estate broker. To bring Derek to speak at your function or corporate event, contact him at 832-721-2251. That's 832-721-2251. Also, follow Derek on all social media platforms, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, or on the website, derekjlove.com.